All right, guys, I want to welcome you guys aboard here. It's almost 10:30 Eastern Time on April 20th. That's Tuesday. I had a relatively sluggish market this morning, and I wanted to talk to you guys more about how we can use the ATR and some good signs and some bad signs. Now, if you notice here, I'm going to grab the dollar index ATR, the DX 610. And you'll notice here how we have a rather steep increase here on the ATR this morning. Right? Since about 9 o'clock this morning, we've been rising on the ATR on the dollar. Now, the dollar is a good sign of things to come for the rest of the markets. But with a rising ATR, why aren't we seeing big moves in the market? Right? When I think of rising ATR, I think of new higher highs. I think of new lower lows. I think of a trending environment. Now, today we've identified today in our setup process that today's environment, because it had rising ATR, but with very slow speed, very low volume today, we can, of course, assume that this rising range, the rising ATR, is actually being caused, right, by sideways chop back and forth from one extreme to the next. Right? We talked more about how back and forth we can easily see in a low volume environment of how the ATR can be very wide, causing the price to move from one extreme to the next. So we see that sometimes ATR can be a good thing, but sometimes, like today, right, the ATR might be a sign of a bad thing. For example, right now today we're seeing a low volume environment and we're seeing ATR rising, but we're not seeing that in the form of a trending environment on our charts. So you can see there are two types of situations you want to be aware of. The first type is when I have the ATR rising with heavy speed. Now we use things like the pace of a tape indicator to tell us what speed looks like, right? The speed of the tape, the pace of the tape. So one example, which would be the likelihood of a good, strong day, will be when I see the average true range rising and I see the speed rising. Okay, average true range rising, that means the trades are, of course, widening out. And then you have the speed rising, that means more people are getting involved as the day progresses. Now, that's not what we're seeing right now, though, is it, guys? Right? We're seeing the complete opposite of that today. We're seeing a rising ATR, but instead of seeing good speed, we're seeing slow speed. And what that's causing is that complete opposite reaction from the market. Rather than seeing new highs and new lows, we're seeing double tops and double bottoms because this rising range without the decent speed of the tape is causing price to rattle around back and forth inside of its sideways ranges. And of course, we use this example to show you guys how sometimes price will go from one extreme to the next on low volume. It can move very quickly from one high to the previous low. And the reason why it does that is because of that lack of big money. Right, the low volume in the market, the lack of the big money in the market, right? It's very important. Without that, the little traders out there, the retail traders, they look for the next best thing. They look for the closest, obvious level of support and resistance. Usually, those obvious levels are double tops, double bottoms, big round numbers, trend lines, value areas. Okay, so when we're seeing the low volume with the high rising ATR, average true range, we know it can be one or the other. So when you see rising ATR, if you see great speed behind it, be on the lookout for a great day ahead. If you see rising ATR, but you see very slow speed behind it, you want to be a little more careful out there, right? Because you're probably going to see that wide sideways range trading back and forth from those extremes on very little volume. So just an example here today in the live trade room. Hope you guys have obviously picked up on this as well. But I've showed you guys also two scenarios here of how you can use ATR. Watch the speed. Okay, rising or falling ATR, watch the speed behind it. That will confirm, and that will give you guys more information about what the market's actually thinking out there. Keep asking questions. If you guys need more help,